That man sure is super. Hey y'all, Alan here, and I'm back at it again with another film review, this time for Superman. Yes, after the last DC cinematic universe has ended, here comes a new one, led by James Gunn and his singular vision. Well, visions, because of course he won't be making everything. So he begins a new franchise to hopefully reunite the love of DC as a whole for mainstream audiences, and instead of just relying on Batman or something else or Aquaman every once in a while, now we get to have some variety. And of course, because since it was directed by him and I enjoyed all of his comic book movies so far, um, this would be something different in the landscape of comic book media that we have from movies and shows and video games. Um, so I was pretty looking forward to this. I remember the castings from David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnahan and Nicholas Hoult and everyone else just a couple years ago before around the strike time. So I was like, this can actually work. Let's get to it. So anyway, for the movie, we have the first movie in this franchise, not count if you don't count Creature Commandos as its actual first installment, since the continuity can get a little wonky. But Superman. The plot, well, this one doesn't have a traditional plot, as instead of a singular narrative, it has a collection of mini storylines that connect, almost like a series of episodes, as if it were like a comic book. Just to give us an idea of what the Superman story and mythos is like, because of course he's pretty iconic and doesn't need an origin story. This one kind of skips the origin story. This one, kind of like the Batman, already hasn't been Superman for 3 years already. So he's gotten used to it. Of course, not everyone's a fan of him in the universe, but he's trying his best because there'll be some variety of what some people think Superman is about or what he's best for. Some like him for his humanity and heart. Some like him for his power. Some like him for his suit or just the media that he's been in. So everyone has an idea of what Superman is. So it does take things in a different direction, but I guess I'm gonna be myself in saying that I felt pretty conflicted on the movie as a whole. Um, there are some parts that I really like, but then some things I didn't. So things get kind of complicated and hard to feel. Because the structure, for me, it does kind of mess with the momentum and the flow because it doesn't allow me to connect with what I'm witnessing. Like, I'm enjoying the individual scene, but as an experience, there's a bunch to be left desired because, of course, there's a beginning with the fight of like that mysterious suited villain, and then there's the conversation with him and Lois, which I'll get to later. Then there's fighting the kaiju, and then going to the pocket dimension, and then the big climax. So it does get a little all over the place and messy. But for David and Rachel, they play their characters pretty well, and just like I believe back then, they're pretty solid castings, and they both have pretty good chemistry to the point where I wish they had more scenes together, even with that really long conversation, which some could say could go on for too long. And I'm half on half on it because on some point I did like the scene, but on another hand, on the other hand, I was like, why in this part of the movie? Like, I feel like this could have worked somewhere better. But Nicholas Hoult as Lex Luthor is my favorite character in the movie. I knew he was gonna be great. So I'm glad to see him bring his menacing game on. He's the Lex Luthor we know, but different because he adds a different kind of side to his personality of being younger and not being like the older, completely calculating mastermind. He does have his sensitivities and isn't completely sane. So I'm glad to see him here. In fact, for these three, I'm hope to see more of them in the future. And of course, it's the plan to be a whole cinematic universe. Where's the sequel, man? The visuals are pretty solid, like both like the coloring, the lighting. Some parts. Well, before the movie came out, I thought it was gonna be a little too saturated, but it looked perfect on the way it is on a big screen. The CGI is pretty great for the most part. The flying sequences are outstanding. The action scenes are pretty good. And pretty imaginative. Of course, being a James Gunn production, he knows how to pull off action. And of course, the one shots, the licensed music, the whole shebang, and the use of the Superman action is pretty good and creative, where it's similar to that of Zack Snyder's, but different because not just slow motion. It does use it with the Dragon Ball Z anime style, but it stands out and doesn't feel like a carbon copy. Not that there was any intention for it. Um, the comedy it worked for me fine for the most part. Like there was some jokes that did make me laugh, like one involving monkeys and squirrels. Squirrel. Um, some didn't work, and I didn't leave a reaction on me. But yeah, that was one of the elements that didn't bother me. And of course, this introduces the Justice Gang. I wonder what they'll turn to in the future. Wink, wink. We had Guy Gardner. Well, Nathan Fillion as the Guy Gardner version of Green Lantern, not the most iconic one, but he's there. He's pretty funny. We have Eddie Cathargi as Mr. Terrific, who was a massive highlight because he was cool, he was groovy, he was badass. And he didn't have a lot in the movie, but for the scenes he was in, he was pretty badass, like I said. And I hope to see more of him later on, whether a spin-off or, I don't know, a sequel. He did grab my attention. Well, I guess now I can get to a bunch of criticisms which I had with it. First of all is Hawkgirl, because of the castings, I was very excited to see Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl. I was like, yes, she's a good actress, has a good character. She's gonna be along the ride for many years to come, and I still hope that's the case. But she is kind of okay in this one because she's just kind of like the younger, edgy, moody, young superhero of the team, and has some cool fights and moments, but doesn't leave much of an impact in terms of personality. I feel like this kind of character's been done better. I hope there's a better characterization for her later on, because I feel there's so much to scratch. Someone that has they barely scratched the surface here, in my opinion. Skylar Gisondo, I think, as Jimmy Olsen was pretty charming, but he has a side plot, which I'll get to later, and I wish it were a better side plot. Also, back to the action. I say, like, the action scenes with Superman were pretty cool, but my only issue with it sometimes is that the camera movement would spin so much that it would get a little disorienting. But like I was saying, David is a pretty great version of the Man of Steel, but I didn't love this version as much, because of course the pacing was messing up with the characterization a bit, where I wasn't fully connected with it. There was some good stuff in there, but it felt incomplete. The Engineer is a pretty boring side villain. Like, she has some cool powers, but she's just an evil henchwoman. And sometimes the line delivery of the actress makes her pretty unintimidating. Oh yeah, the Daily Planet crew with Steve, Kat, Perry. It's nice to see them there, but they don't get the attention I was hoping they would get, because they're a pretty big part of the Superman lore. And they're just there for the most part. And it's a shame, because they're pretty good casting overall, but they get a scene by the climax, but I wish they had more similar to, like, the Daily Bugle crew from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. There are some similarities to those movies to this, but I guess this, by having less characters, for that having less characters, it became more focused, but I'll get to that later. The Kents, Superman's adoptive parents, are here, but aside from one touching scene near the third act, they're barely in the movie. Like, I was hoping they would be a driving force of the emotion, but only like by the end of it. They're great, and they have like that good conversation between Jonathan, Paul Kent, and Clark. Speaking of, you barely get any nerdy Clark Kent at all. Like, he's like in the Superman persona for most of it. Like, it's like he's basically the same person in both versions of the role. But yeah, like I was saying, too many characters. Only like the ones that I was praising, plus Crypto because he was adorable and he got some good scenes. They're the only ones who got time to shine. Everyone else just says their lines, come in and out, and then just leave and then come back. So they felt pretty underdeveloped. Not one note, but just they feel like missed potential. And also the 2-hour runtime doesn't really help. I feel like they should have been longer, or maybe they should have cut off some characters to make it more focused, which was a little imbalanced. Now that that's said and done, now I'm gonna get to the spoiler segment. I'll give it a few seconds. Okay, now the spoiler segment. I guess I can get this out of the way for the cameos. Of course, with this being a big superhero movie, of course there's gonna be cameos. I know that Christopher Reeve's son, Will Reeve, made a cameo as a reporter. I think news anchors made appearances in the news. Some cameo that I just did not see coming is John Cena reprising his role as Peacemaker, which is hilarious, but then it makes me wonder about, again, the continuity of this universe. Does this connect to the old cinematic universe? Is it or not? So does that mean others are returning? I know James Gunn has kind of been on and off on it, but I wonder, can other characters from the other universe come back? Because if so, I wonder if there are some specific ones I would like to see come back just for the sake of it. But also by the near end, we got Millie Alcock as Supergirl. I know she has a movie coming out soon, by next year, so I didn't expect her to be already here as a cameo. She was charming, but drunk. I didn't expect to see a drunk Supergirl, but maybe those be more to appreciate once her movie comes around. But yeah, more Crypto, please. There's a big reveal that Superman's parents, Jor-El and Kara-El, but this time with him being played by Bradley Cooper. That's an odd cameo. Well, no, not odd, but interesting cameo. I wonder if he'll come back. Where he believes that he's brought in to bring people hope, but then revealed that he was brought to Earth to take over it, Super Saiyan style. And the leak causes the world to turn against him. And that was a surprising twist, but part of me wishes they would have said that for later in the movie or a sequel, because as I barely got to know this Superman, it didn't hit that hard. And what else? They made a pretty big deal of those kids raising that flag. For that Superman to come over and assist and help them, only for him not even show up. Instead of the group gets saved by the Justice Gang, Superman stays in the collapsing city by the end. And also they bring geopolitics, which is meant to be very relevant to today's times, and it is, but I feel they did a little too simplistic, even with that complex conversation with Lois and Clark. I feel like there could have been more to do with it, but it did feel pretty overstuffed. But in conclusion, it didn't end up feeling that earned because of it. Oh, by the way, Metamorpho is also here, which I forgot, because he does get some moments here and there, but he's just there. He can transform his body. He has some cool action, but yeah, I guess he's just another character in the movie. Also, to do with Baby Joey, that little green alien, and then of course the kaiju turned into a giant. The conflict by the end ends very easily, because it's not even Superman that ends the split of the city from the pocket dimension leaking out. Speaking of which, that pocket dimension did look pretty cool with the jails, the box sales, the river leading to a black hole. But yeah, I guess it's Mr. Terrific that's the one who shuts it down and brings things back to the way they are. Superman does stop Lex, and also And also the Daily Planet are the ones who leak out the information, so that was all them. Superman didn't have anything to do with that. Um, so for him, not really solving problems that much, and also for him losing a lot, it does make this version not as interesting as I was hoped for. He's still pretty good, but he's not the one who had the big climatic showdown. I know he does have one, but I'll get to him in a bit. Yeah, I guess it does feel kind of empty while not having been completely his story. I know it's about the community, but he needs his fair share too. And also, I know it's revealed that Ultraman is actually a clone of Superman, which I guess they make its own version of Bizarro without the zombie design and with a long wig of hair. For me, it had no emotional weight because, of course, this cliche has been done a lot and recently, and it didn't do anything that unique with it. It's just a clone, a type of threat to go against him when they couldn't have like another Kryptonian like Zod from Man of Steel. It didn't play that much into the themes. It's not like, of course, he was causing damage, but it wasn't that massive. It was mostly just to get attention from Superman, and it didn't leave an impact in the grand scheme of it all. I guess some things, so by having too much to do in it, not everything felt fulfilling. Since for a movie that had so much build up to it, I feel there's not that it should have done more. It had a lot. It's just like maybe take away some of it and do more with the small, more important things. Also, the musical score, it's pretty good. Has some solid tracks, but they just reused the John Williams Superman theme from back in the day, with making a new interpretation of it. But it's like they couldn't create a new theme. Like Hans Zimmer made a pretty damn good Superman theme for his side of the universe. So I'm not sure what stopped them here. It did have two post-credit scenes. One was just being Superman and Krypto on the moon, looking down on the Earth, which was pretty cute. But I feel it didn't have to. It wasn't like what 6 seconds, so it wasn't really. I guess might be a record for the shortest post-credit scene in some time. It could have been saved for something else, or that scene could have be sent in the movie. Because overall, the movie does have some heartfelt moments, but it's only like a part of it, and so like it should have been a bigger part of it. And the second post-credit scene being another gag. Superman and Mr. Terrific looking at the damage and a split building and deciding what are they going to do with it and what should be done, and he's all upset thinking like he should be responsible. And he just goes out and kicks a rock, which is funny, but didn't need to be the second post-credits, and I feel like it could have been something better, but hey, at least they chose not to set up anything. This one, it did feel pretty standalone for the most part. Also, we get Sean Gunn as Maxwell Lord, which I'm sure he'll be back in the future since, of course, it is how it goes. So my final thoughts are, for me, it's an okay movie. It's not mediocre. It's above it, but I feel like since there was so much happening and the flow didn't really go that well, like one scene would end abruptly and then go straight to the next and then the next, it didn't feel like an emotional adventure, if you know what I mean. One would say this would be a shorter review than I'm usually used to, but hey, I guess it does a lot, but not a lot with the individual stuff. It really should have had a clearer focus. I know they were trying to add in a lot to make it feel like a lived-in universe, and it does. And not over-relying on Easter eggs and setups, which is a good thing, but it did not feel complete. Like, I felt there was definitely more. Some stuff should have been shuffled around, some stuff could have been longer, some stuff could have been shorter. It's like there wasn't really a good fix on what should have been the focus. Because there was some good stuff in there. It's just those good things needed to be expanded upon. It didn't, because they needed to save some room for some goofy humor and some, I guess some comic book nostalgia. There does need to be kind of a limit, or to be done with better execution, because as the way it's sounding, This is by far my least favorite of James Gunn's comic book movies, and I've seen his 3 Guardians movies, I've seen the Suicide Squad, but this one just doesn't scratch the same itch. It's not the game changer people have their own subjective opinion. It's not the game changer that I was hoping for and didn't feel as earned as it should have, but I know for sure this movie does have a fan base which will appreciate this movie for years to come. So in this case, I'm the one with the unpopular opinion. It's just how I felt towards it. Happy for those that like it. This may not be the style I might prefer in a DC movie or any comic book movie, because I feel like the structure isn't really the problem, it's the way it's done, because I feel like there's smaller indie movies that pulled it off better.